Hi guys! The Great Feast and the ending of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Back in the tunnel they paused so that Mr. Fox could brick up the hole in the wall. He was humming to himself as he put the bricks in place. I can still taste that glorious cider, he said. What an impudent fellow rat is. He has bad manners, Badger said. All rats have bad manners. I've never met a polite rat yet. And he drinks too much, said Mr. Fox, putting the last brick in place. There we are. Now, home to the feast. They grabbed their jars of cider and off they went. Mr. Fox was in front. The smallest fox came next and the badger was last. Along the tunnel they flew, past the turning that led to Bunce's mighty storehouse, past Boggus chicken house number 1, and then up along the home stretch towards the place where they knew Mrs. Fox would be waiting. Keep it up, my darlings, shouted Mr. Fox. We'll be soon there. Think what's waiting for us at the other end, and just think what we're bringing home with us in these jars. That ought to cheer up poor Mrs. Fox. Mr. Fox sang a little song as he ran. Home again, swiftly I glide, back to my beautiful bride. She'll not feel so rotten as soon as she's gotten some cider inside her insides. Then Badger joined in. Oh, poor Mrs. Badger, he cried, so hungry she very nearly died. But she'll not feel so hollow if only she'll swallow some cider inside her insides. They were still singing as they rounded the final corner and burst in upon the most wonderful and amazing sight any of them had ever seen. The feast was just beginning. A large dining room had been hollowed out of the earth, and in the middle of it, seated around a huge table, were no less than 29 animals. They were Mrs. Fox and 3 small foxes, Mrs. Badger and 3 small badgers, Mole and Mrs. Mole and 4 small moles, Rabbit, Mrs. Rabbit and 5 small rabbits, Weasel and Mrs. Weasel and 6 small weasels. The table was covered with chickens and ducks and geese and hams and bacon, and everyone was tucking in to the lovely food. Look at that. Lots of animals. Tons of animals sitting down for a huge feast. My darling, cried Mrs. Fox, jumping up and hugging Mr. Fox. We couldn't wait. Please forgive us. Then she hugged the smallest fox of all, and Mrs. Badger hugged Badger, and everyone hugged everyone else. Amid shouts of joy and great jars of cider were placed upon the table, and Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox sat down with the others. You must remember no one had eaten a thing for several days. They were ravenous. So for a while, there was no conversation at all. There was only the sound of crunching and chewing as the animals attacked the succulent food. At last, Badger stood up. He raised his glass of cider and called out, "A toast! I want you all to stand and drink our toast to our dear friend who has saved our lives this day, Mr. Fox." To Mr. Fox, they all shouted, standing up and raising their glasses. To Mr. Fox, long may he live. Here's a picture. Then Mrs. Fox got shyly to her feet and said, I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say one thing, and it is this. My husband is a fantastic fox. Everybody clapped and cheered. Then Mr. Fox himself stood up. This delicious meal, he began. Then he stopped. In the silence that followed, here he is standing up. In the silence that followed, he let fly a tremendous belch. There was laughter and more clapping. This delicious meal, my friends, he went on, is by courtesy of Messrs. Boggus, Bunce, and Bean. More cheering and laughter. And I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. He let fly another colossal what? Better out than in, said Badger. Too much cider, I think. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning hugely. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the next day and the days after that. If we go out, we'll be killed, right? Right, they shouted. We'll be shot before we've got a yard, said Badger. Exactly, said Mr. Fox. But who wants to go out anyway? Let me ask you that. We are all diggers, every one of us. We hate the outside. The outside is full of enemies. We only go out because we have to get food for our families. But now, my friends, we have an entirely new setup. We have a safe tunnel leading to 3 of the finest stores in the world. We do indeed, said Badger. I've seen them. And you know what this means, said Mr. Fox? It means that none of us need ever go out into the open again. There was a buzz of excitement around the table. I therefore invite you all, Mr. Fox went on, to stay here with me forever. Forever, they cried. My goodness, how marvelous, and Rabbit said to Mrs. Rabbit, my dear, just think, we're never going to be shot at again in our lives. We will make, said Mr. Fox, a little underground village with streets and houses on each side. Separate houses for badgers and moles and rabbits and weasels and foxes. And every day I will go shopping for you all. And every day we will eat like kings. The cheering that followed this speech went on for many minutes. Chapter 18. Still waiting. Outside the fox's hole, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean sat beside their tents with their guns in their laps. It was beginning to rain. Water was trickling down the necks of the 3 men into their shoes. They're sitting outside in the rain, and all the animals are in the hole eating like crazy. There's a picture of them sitting out there in the rain. He won't stay down there much longer now, Bogus said. The brute must be famished, Bunce said. That's right, Bean said. He'll be making a dash for it any moment. Keep your guns handy. They sat there by the hole waiting for the fox to come out. And so far as I know, they're still waiting. And that's the end of this book. Those crazy farmers are still sitting there waiting for that crazy fox to come out. I don't think he's ever going to come out. They might be sitting there to doomsday. And that is the end of our book. So, you guys think of, there's some questions here. What are the 3 farmers called? Where is the hole Mr. Fox lives in? Mr. Fox loses something when the farmers shoot at him. What's that one thing he loses? And how many cider jars does Mabel take from the cellar? And she's the help at the farm. How many children does Mr. Fox have? And those are some questions we'll cover in a little bit. And so I'll see you soon. Make sure you guys draw me out a picture and make out a statement for what happened today, and we'll discuss it at Zoom, okay? And y'all be safe. Don't forget, wash your hands. See you in a bit.